старого центра глобального экономического развития за счет денежной накачки выйти из депрессии фактически провалились. Там есть, конечно, элементы новых технологий, но тем не менее финансовые пузыри продолжают расти. И это предопределяет исход этого сдвига. Вы видите здесь уже прогноз 2030 года, где страны нового хозяйства уже будут производить больше половины мирового страна. Поэтому с этой точки зрения мир уже серьезно изменился. Эти изменения проходят последние 15 лет. Они уже привели к формированию устойчивых трендов роста новой ядра мировой экономической системы, которая становится центром генерирования инвестиций в развитие. В то время как старое ядро пытается удержать либо за счет традиционных методов либеральной глобализации, не обращая внимания на появление новой экономической модели, и не обращая, в частности, внимания на то, что в новой экономической модели, коллеги, восстанавливается национальный суверенитет. Отличие новой модели от старой, потому что вы видите в программе сопряжения Евразийского союза с шелковым путем, нет стремления сломать границы государства для свободного движения капитала. Эта интеграция идет в направлении национальных юрисдикций. Каждое государство пытается сохранить свою экономическую форм движения капитала, а путем сочетания национальных конкурентных преимуществ. Это сильно отличает от той модели либеральной глобализации, которая была до этого, и которая, в общем-то, как мы видим, перестала работать. Но новая модель сформировалась, поэтому, мне кажется, мы можем сегодня уверенно прогнозировать будущее на ближайшие 15-20 лет, вот исходя из этих тенденций.
Thank you. We will get back later on during our discussions about what you laid out clearly about the emergence of a new architecture, Eurasia, Silk Road Initiative, and so on. But let me get back now to David, because you mentioned China. China has been clearly a major growth driver for many years and major contributor to global growth. So David, IMF in fact yesterday revised the forecast for China GDP growth, but also I want to ask you, what are also behind that new growth in China? Your president mentioned that we need now a more balanced economic growth, more sustainable. What is now, in your perspective, clearly China economic prospect, but also, from the outside world, people just pay attention to, we have maybe major credit growth in China, we have maybe major financial risk, too much leverage. Do you concur with that analysis, or do you believe that Chinese authorities have a good control about way to try to manage the rising debt in China? David.
Well, first of all, let me mention that in my view, we have a world economy which has two major engines. One engine is from China in terms of real demand for real goods. China's economy accounts for about 25 to 30% of GDP growth for the past few years, and still is the case. And so that any increase or pickup in the Chinese economy will imply increased demand for commodity, increased demand for material from the rest of the world. So that's one engine of growth. The other engine of growth, I believe, is reverse engine right now.
Экономикалық өсімге жауап беріп отыр. Бұл өсім ирониялық түрде айтатын болсақ, бұл Қытайдан шығып отыр. Неге? Өйткені ақш-тың қаржы жағдайы тұрақсыз болып отыр. Және бұл да пайыздық көрсеткішке әсер етіп отыр. ақш-тың финансылық фондына әсер етіп отыр. Осыған орай біз Қытайды әлемдік экономиканың драйвері деп атауға мүмкіндік беріп отыр. Әрине, ақш және ақш доллары ол маңызды валюта болғанымен, жаһандық экономикада оның әлемге әсер етіп отырғанын назардан тыс қалдырмауымыз қажет. Әйтсе де оның ақш долларының әлемдік экономикаға қарсы әсер оны да көріп отырмыз. Доллар біздің де валютаға әсер етеді. Егер ақш осы саясатты ұстанатын болса, ары қарай да ұстанып отыратын болса, бұл бізге резервивті әсер етеді. Бір драйвер позитивті көрсетеді. Біз бүгін осы жүйенің құрылысын құрап отырмыз. Менің ойымша өте үлкен риск. Бірақ Қытай экономикасы бұл рискті өтіп кеткісі келеді. Олар жақсы көрсеткіш көрсетіп отыр. Қытай қарызы үлкейіп бара жатыр, және жалпы сомасы 200%, ВВП-ның 200%-ын құрап отыр. Бірақ Жапонияда кішкене төменірек. Екеуінің айырмашылығы бар. Қытай ол сақтап қалудың үлкен экономикасы, 30-45% ВВП-ның. Қытай националдық бюросының статистикасы бойынша 30-40% ол жинақтық қор болып табылады. Олар канал бойынша бағытталған. Оларда бірінші капитал бұл қарыз, екіншісі капитал нарығы болып табылады. Осы жинақталған қорды олар инвестицияға бағыттау үшін бағыттаған кезде олар қарызға айналып кетеді. Осы жағдай Қытайда осындай болып отыр. Жапонияда қарыз төмен, 30% ол жақта. Бұл жерде біз түсінуіміз керек. ақш пен Қытайдың айырмашылығын түсінуіміз керек. Біз қарыздар туралы айтқан кезде ақш пен Қытайдың айырмашылығын білуіміз керек. Бұл жерде бұл қарызды қалай қолдануымыз керек, соны түсінуіміз керек. Мысалы, Францияда қарызды кепілдендіру бар. Әрбір мемлекеттің үлкен қаражаты, жұмыссыздық, медициналық сақтандыру, инвестициялар жалпы мемлекеттің инфраструктурасын жақсарту үшін қолданылады. Бұл мәдениет объектілері, жолдар, денсаулық сақтау саласы. Бұл қаржының барлығы басқаша қолданылады. Қытайда бұл қаржының барлығы ақш-қа қарағанда басқаша қолданылады. Ол жерде мемлекеттің экономикасына инвестиция салыну арқылы экономиканы жақсартады. Бұл жалпы қарызды үлкейткенімен мемлекеттің экономикасын жақсартады. Әрине, әрбір мемлекет өзінің таңдауын жасайды. Мәселен, октябрь айында Қытайда үлкен қалаларында көптеген өзгерістер болды. Ол жаңа мемлекет басшылығына келген жаңа адамдар өзгеше жұмыс істеуі мүмкін. Олар тазарақ жұмыс істейді деген ойдамыз. Олар сайлаудың бірнеше раундынан кейін өз орындарына отырған адамдар. Олар адамдар сіздерді ұрсуы мүмкін деген ойға келмеді. Олар тек қана дұрыс жұмыс істеңдер деген бағыт берді. Олар жұртшылықтың назарын тудырмау үшін жақсылап жұмыс істеп, жаңа инвестициялар тартуларыңыз қажет деген ғана талап қойып отыр. Сондықтан бұл жаңа деңгей, бұл Қытайдағы жаңа деңгейге көтерілген жаңа басшылар деп айтуға болады. Олар Қытайдың экономикасын көтеруге күш салуда. Олар барлық қаржыларын экономикаға инвестициялауға бет бұрып отыр. Олар барлығы жемісті жұмыс істеуі мүмкін деген ойға келіп отыр. Олар тезірек жұмыс істеуі де мүмкін. Біз Мария Кабылканы шақырғым келіп отыр. Бұл жаһандық экономикалық өсуді жоғары көрсеткішке ие болуды, Польша еврозонаның еврозонада екен білеміз. Біз бір алтын ғасыр туралы айтып отырған сияқтымыз. Осы уақытта Польшаның дамуы қандай болып жатыр? Осы реформа жағдайында Польша қалай дамып келе жатыр? Сіз өзіңіздің мемлекетіңізде жаңа моментті көріп отырған аударып отырған жоқ деймін да.
So this is well, and
барлық адамдар, мәселен, африкалық мемлекеттері, олардың барлығы Европада өмір сүргілері келеді. Олар өте қатты Европаға көшкілері де келеді. Мәселен, біз қадағаланатын региондарда айтқан кезде өзінің өте жоғарғы стандартты өмір сүру стандарттары барлар. Соның ішінде Европа жұртшылығы 7% құрап отыр. 50% мемлекеттік шығын Польшаның адамдарына беріледі. Көптеген европалықтар осындай нәрселерді ұнатпайды. Жаһандану, біз жаһандану туралы басқа да сессиялар болады. Мен осы жерде осындай ремарка айтып кетсем, бізде өсіп жатқан біз өсіп келе жатқан үлкен қателік жібердік. Жаһандану кезінде, мен студент болған кезімде, коммунистік Польша болды ол кезде. Біз ол кезде жаһандану бұл жақсы дамыған экономикаға үлесі зор деген ойда болдық. Дегенмен де үлкен корпорациялар солай ойлайды. Бірақ жаһанданың үлкен бенефициары болып, бұл дамып келе жатқан мемлекеттер болады. Бірақ Давостағы кездесуде жаһандануды жақтады. Ол өзі Қытай болғанмен де американдық деп айтады өзін. Олар жаһандануды өзінің жұмыс нарығын да олар социалды әлеуметтік саясатқа өте үлкен көңіл бөледі. Және европалықтар оған позитивті қарайды. Европалықтар көбіне сондықтан Европа халықаралық стандартты қояды. Мәселен, Google мырза ол өте қатты қорқып отыр. Нарықта ортақ валютаны енгізуден қорқып отыр. Солай ол бүкіл мемлекеттер ортасында көпір жасауы мүмкін дегеннен қорқып отыр. Мүмкін бұл жақсы да шығар. Европа евроны кіргізген кезде Европа тұрақсыздыққа ұшырады. Бұл саяси тұрақсыздық алып келді, әлеуметтік тұрақсыздық алып келді. Евроодақтың көңілі қалды деп те айтуға болады. Бұл жерде екі жағдай бар, көмектесетін. Европаға көмектесетін екі жағдай бар. Бұл Дональд Трамп мырза, оның экономикаға көмектесуі. Өйткені еуропалық экономикаға осы жерде тағы да мынаны ұмытпайық. Декларация, Қытай мемлекетінің декларациясы. Олар еврозона ештеңе қарамастан дамып келе жатыр деп айтып отыр. Италия негізі экзотикалық бөлшек болып табылады. Италияда мысалы 5 жұлдыздықты топтар бар. Бұның барлығы біздің ішімізде үлкен проблема болып отыр. Еврозонаның әрбір мемлекеті өзінше дамып баратыр. Греция туризм саласы, Германия инженерия саласын дамытып отыр. Бұл жерде Европада өте көп кредиторлар бар. Олар кредиторлар саны өсіп жатыр. Ешқандай тосқауылсыз. Басқа мемлекеттер оларға дебитор болып жатыр. Осы жағдайда қалай қысқартуға болады? Бұл үлкен проблема. Біз осы жерде қандай шешім қабылдаймыз? Евроодақтың
Do you see Kazakhstan so far can benefit for this global recovery? And what is, also the new growth driver in your country to try to benefit with, hopefully, a more sustainable recovery?
A flow to me, to myself. Yeah, actually, just first to answer the general question of our before coffee break session, part of the session, is I also, I think, sharing the view of James from McCormack from Fitch with this general assessment of current status of this cycle, economic cycle globally. Coming back to your question, I think given all things, it's now difficult to expect that commodity prices in general, but also especially the oil prices, will recover to the levels, even not the levels which we saw 3, 4, 5 years ago, but to levels substantially higher than we see them now. We see that the Chinese economy, which was the biggest source of growth and real demand for commodities, is now switching, maybe gradually, but nevertheless switching to the new format, which is slower growth, more oriented towards services, and so on. Yes, still, given the huge urbanization developments in China, still there will be substantial demand for commodities, but nevertheless it will be much more slower, if growth at all. So for Kazakhstan and for other Central Asian and more broadly commodity producing countries, I think we really have new chapter in our development. Which I think for Kazakhstan at least is generally beneficial. So we should look beyond relying on petrodollars inflows, and obviously this brings us to the quest for new sources. One biggest source is obviously China, which is still high growth country, and especially given Belt and Road Initiative may bring substantial new opportunities for Kazakhstan and the region in terms of development. Second, smaller, maybe not small for Kazakhstan, but more specific item is still in terms of agricultural production. Kazakhstan and also the other countries in the region, especially including Russia, agriculture is a big, agro-processing is a big potential area of growth, especially once again given that the China and South Asian countries including India, Pakistan, Iran, which is Western Asia, of course, not South, but the growing middle classes shift the food consumption exactly into the areas where Kazakhstan and other countries in the region may provide for. Thank you.
Yesterday, good timing, Fed increased interest rates. So is there a new chapter for monetary policy? Do we see this normalization of monetary policy underway risky? Or should we not be worried about it? This is part of, go back to the paradigm of monetary policy. We have a new cycle. So what is your perspective? And as David mentioned, like when we see the major international reserve currency increasing interest rate, we are going to have major spillover to the rest of the world. Should we be worried about it for emerging market in terms of capital flow, in terms of exchange rate? Jacob.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here again this morning and to participate in this opening panel. I think that the designers of the program were very perceptive. They called it the next chapter. They did not call it the next book. And it's a very important perspective, because some people think that after the crisis we are not only in a new world, but we can throw away all the textbooks, everything that we learned is not relevant, everything is uncertain, and everyone can come with a crazy idea. I think it is important to notice that the corpus of knowledge that has been developed over the ages has a lot still to teach us. And yes, there was a crisis, and special circumstances require special responses, and a new chapter has been written, but it is not instead of the old textbook. It is a new chapter, and hopefully into the textbook. The reason why I mention it is that at the beginning, after 2008, when everyone was conducting unconventional monetary policy and unconventional policies in general, the excuse was that there are special circumstances. But everyone, including those who did the policies, expected it to be short-term. It was expected to be a detour rather than a new paradigm. And now, 2017, we are still talking about it, 10 years after the event. So for me, the fact that the Federal Reserve yesterday raised rates is good news, because it means we are getting closer back to the older paradigm. There are even, in every society, the culture of jokes reflects a lot of wisdom. And in the United States, many people were talking about the story of the mother-in-law. The mother-in-law promised to come and visit for one weekend, but she stayed for many years. And here the unconventional policies were supposed to be short-term, and they stayed for a long time. And there are a lot of costs. It was a very important action that central banks have taken at the time, but now it is to be recognized that the victory is in hand. As was discussed already, we have now, after many years, uniform good performance. There is no region in the world that is not growing positively. And in fact, all the revisions were to the up direction. And we are back, in a way, to the normal situation. The global world will continue to grow next year at about 2%. We're at about 3.5%. The industrial countries, 2%, but emerging markets are continuing to be the locomotive, 4.5%. And which one is the locomotive of the locomotive? Again, the Asian emerging markets, led by China, led by India. So this is part that we need to remember. However, for us to benefit from the good performance of some parts of the world, the linkage between that part and the rest of the world must be strong. This is where globalization comes in, this is where trade comes in, and the years in which international trade expands are also the years in which economic performance is good. The only year in which trade collapsed in the world was 2009, where the volume of trade collapsed by more than 10%. This is also the only year in which growth in the world was zero and industrial countries' growth was very negative. So it is in this regard that I see a positive development of what is happening here. But there are some important lessons to be learned. And Mark Uzan, first of all, I forgot to thank you, because what you did in creating this series of meetings every year in Astana, together with your good friend Maksat, is a very important event. And I want you to know that when you ask me about monetary policy today, the style of monetary policy is very different than what it used to be 15, 20 years ago. In the old days, in order to succeed, monetary policy had to surprise the market. Because if you did not surprise the market, you could not create action. Today, the objective is not to surprise the market, to interact with the market, to have a dialogue with the market, because the markets are deep, the markets are capital markets, financial markets that respond very quickly, and therefore clarity is important. This is why those of you who saw last night the news conference by the chairperson of the Federal Reserve, Janet Yellen, could not but be respectful and impressed by the openness and by the transparency that was reflected. Each one of us now knows that the Federal Reserve plans to raise rates again. It will not be a surprise, we know it. And that it will be another step in another step. In 2018, we will see another step of interest rate rises. This is the nature of monetary policy. This is what the business sector needs, the clarity, so then you can make investment programs. Now, it is the fact, and already Mark Belka described to us, that not all regions in the world recover at the same pace. So the United States is recovering faster than Europe now. I think that Europe will recover very soon. But it also means that there is a period in which we will see interest rates in the United States going up, while interest rates in Europe not yet going up. This will mean that the exchange rate between the euro and the dollar will need to adjust. It will be a mistake to prevent that adjustment. It is part of the adjustment process that reflects the fact that some countries are in a different phase than others. The reason why it is so important to restore normalization and to raise interest rates is that in the meanwhile, since the beginning of the crisis today, what we have is that the balance sheets of all central banks has expanded dramatically. If we say that 2007 was 100, then today the US balance sheet is more than 500. If it was 100, then today the balance sheet of the Bank of Japan is 500, and of the European Central Bank is 350, which means the balance sheets are much, much bigger. Now, this is important because still the case is that we need to make sure that financial markets are stable. For the banking system, 3 criteria must be in place. Banks must have more capital than what they used to have, more liquidity, and less leverage. All of these conditions have been implemented, and the banking system today is much stronger than what it used to be before the crisis. It is important that the supervisory and regulatory agencies are enforcing these principles. Let me just say one word about China, and I agree fully with Professor Lee, David Lee, the analysis of China. China is a very important component in the world economy. Everyone emphasizes the dangers. I want to join Professor David Lee in saying that there are the great opportunities. Most countries of the world, China is either the first or the second trading partner. It is an integral part. In 1990, I used to be the chief economist of the IMF and preparing the world economic outlook. At that time, China was not producing more than 5% of world output. Today, it is already 1/5 of world output. It's a very different situation. China's was not a destination of trade. In the year 2000, only 5% of US export went to China. Today, quarter, 25%. In the year 2000, only 5% of European exports went to China. Today, close to 25%. In other words, whether you like it or not, China is an integral part of the world financial system, and this is why it was so important that China's role in the governance of the international financial system is commensurate with its size. Therefore, the increase in China's quotas in the IMF was so important. And this is why I think that I and many others in the world have supported the initiative of China to create the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, because this is the mechanism by which China can contribute to the world governance. I think it was a mistake for the United States not to join that initiative, and it was an important step for everyone else to join it. So let me just conclude by saying that at the end of the day, we are in a world in which there is a much better picture than what it was a decade ago. However, and there is one however, bridges must stay open, roads must stay open, roads to be open, protectionism must be excluded, must be deplored. It is not helping anyone to create barriers to international commerce. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. We will get the Belt and Road Initiative. But before that, I may want now to ask our audience to interact with our panelists and maybe to ask any question you like related to the global economic outlook to any of our panelists here. Please, you have the floor. Who wants to start? Yes, over there, please. Can you tell your name?
Especially to Jacob Frankel, Sergei Glazyev, and Professor Lee, but other members of the session could report as well. We live the period of very huge, tremendous technological change, and automatization and robotization raise two main challenges. The first is the rise of unemployment, and the second is automatization, robotization should, in principle, as the past history shows, create new employment opportunities. And my questions are, first, what changes in educational system, especially in higher
Хотела узнать, какие могут изменения
challenge of robotization and technological change in order to provide a labor force able to satisfy the needs of the new economy and these opportunities of new employment. This is the first question. And the second question, what do you think about the perspective of the universal basic income? Is it a workable mechanism to face this risk of rising unemployment and, as a consequence, the fall in the global demand? Thank you very much.
Very optimistic. I really like the view that you expressed. I hope this would be true, will become true. But however, the things that are happening in the Persian Gulf, the conflict that is rising, should this end up with a war, which is very, very likely, if 11 million barrels of the oil goes out of market just from Saudi Arabia, I'm not talking about others, this will have absolute, as you can imagine, effect on the world. Because if you remember about a year ago, Senator McCain in Senate was going like this, that we will be providing the oil and gas of Europe within 1 year. So basically what is happening today is, you know, he was forecasting it. Now, former head of oil industry in Saudi Arabia was forecasting 3 years ago, if there is conflict in Persian Gulf, the price of oil will go up as much as $300. Now, if that happens, okay, that would be, you know, fantastic for Russia, it would be fantastic for America. However, what will the European economy, which is going down the tube, basically, very rapidly, with the conflicts in Syria and other things, how can the world save itself from the result? Okay, just a few countries will be very happy with this event. So if I want to stop it, but there's a lot to say about this, but I really like to hear the view of the people on the panel.
Okay, we have a new scenario for the global.
So in the future, how stable the global financial system and economic system is likely to be in a truly globalized world when we don't have a global currency per se. So the dominance of it's related to the aspect of global economic governance as well. Do you see going forward, when we talk about uncertain future, these two related aspects sharing?
В первую очередь я благодарю, искренне благодарен за организацию такой площадки. Я являюсь учредителем и руководителем. И благодарю вам, господин спикер, за организацию. Не говорит ли о том, что предприниматели стали больше чувствовать в своей жизни комитета? Вы будете учитывать те проблемы, которые, к сожалению, не достигла того баланса, который сегодня желает видеть реальная экономика. Я благодарю за все вступления и желаю удачного проведения.
Это период, который всегда характеризуется турбулентностью, финансовыми пузырями, когда старые технологии уже не привлекают капитал, а новые технологические траектории еще до конца не сформировались. И картина в сегодняшнем мире очень типично, аналогична той, которая была в 70-е, 80-е годы прошлого века, в 30-е годы прошлого века. При смене технологических укладов всегда государство вынуждено поднимать спрос на новые технологии, стимулировать их внедрение. Отличием является переход ведущих стран мира к денежно-промышленной политике, то, что монетаристы называют финансовой экспансией. В наиболее ярком виде это проявляется в США и в Европе, где Европейский центральный банк дает даже кредиты под отрицательные процентные ставки, лишь бы снизить риски для реального сектора по освоению новых технологий. Потому что переход к новому технологическому укладу – это принципиально новые технологии, которые частный бизнес без поддержки государства осваивает очень неохотно. И вот повышение процентной ставки в Соединенных Штатах означает фактически изменение этой политики. В том смысле, что период денежной накачки, который происходил для помощи бизнесу в освоении технологий нового технологического уклада, в Соединенных Штатах завершается. Одновременно произошла революционная перемена в мировой финансовой системе, когда МВФ принял юань в число резервных валют. Революция здесь заключается в том, что впервые в число резервных валют попала валюта, которая не конвертируема по капитальным операциям. Этого невозможно было себе представить с точки зрения 8 статьи устава МВФ, что такое в принципе возможно. Но раз это произошло, все это свидетельство того, что мир переходит к гораздо более сложной архитектуре мировых финансово-экономических отношений. Он будет больше работать в национальных валютах. Китайская концепция шелкового пути в сопряжении с Евразийским экономическим союзом – это концепция совместных инвестиций в национальных валютах. И каждая страна теперь будет проводить достаточно автономную свою политику развития в поиске новых технологий. Я уверен, что и Китай, и другие страны Юго-Восточной Азии продолжат денежную экспансию для того, чтобы осваивать новые технологии, новые возможности. И они будут перехватывать у США функцию кредитора мирового экономического развития. В то время как повышение процентной ставки в США означает фактически утрату, шаг к утрате роли Америки в качестве главного кредитора мировой экономики. И здесь я согласен с китайским коллегой, который говорил о двух двигателях. Один, который работает на разгон экономики в Юго-Восточной Азии, другой, который начал работать на торможение. Но это торможение лишь усилит вот эти очень серьезные изменения в мировой экономической системе, которая становится более сложной, более многообразной, работающей в национальных валютах, предполагающей сохранение национальных суверенитетов. И страны будут кооперироваться не под эгидой Международного валютного фонда, стремясь проводить одну и ту же политику, а будут пробовать разные политики, соответствующие культурным стереотипам, и пытаться сформировать некие совокупность конкурентных преимуществ, опираясь на свой национальный суверенитет. И второй вызов, который возникает с новым технологическим укладом, а именно автоматизация производства и сокращение промышленности, сельского хозяйства с точки зрения занятости, резкий рост доли здравоохранения, образования, науки и культуры тоже серьезно усложняет всю мировую экономическую архитектуру. Главным драйвером экономического роста стало здравоохранение, где происходит революция с внедрением клеточных технологий. Это ведет к повышению продолжительности жизни до 80-100 лет, что в свою очередь вызывает расширение здравоохранения, которое становится самой большой отраслью, повышение работоспособного возраста, что толкает ведущие страны мира к непрерывному образованию в течение всей трудовой жизни. И в совокупности вот эти отрасли, которые связаны с государственной политикой, а доля государства в здравоохранении, образовании и науке составляет примерно половину источников финансирования, тоже резко усиливает разнообразие моделей развития. И как разные страны мира отреагируют на эти вызовы, покажет ближайшее будущее, но со всей очевидностью та модель, которая складывается в Юго-Восточной Азии, имеет потрясающие конкурентные преимущества. И последнее, о чем я хотел прокомментировать насчет вопроса войны в заливе Персидском, эту угрозу нельзя рассматривать в стороне от происходящих в мире событий. Фактически мы видим, что политическая элита Соединенных Штатов пытается удержать мировое лидерство за счет усиления военно-политической напряженности. Мы видели, к чему это приводило на Ближнем Востоке, к чему это привело в центре Европы, на Украине. И рост военно-политической напряженности – это стандартный ход старого лидера, который теряет гегемонию в мировой конкуренции и пытается усилить свой контроль над периферией путем, как сегодня модно говорить, гибридной войны, путем хаотизации тех сфер, которые не вполне подконтрольны, для того, чтобы усилить свое влияние. Но эта политика обречена на провал. Я думаю, что нам сегодня неплохо было бы начать диалог в Евразии о формировании не только большого евразийского партнерства, о котором говорил президент Путин, но и о создании большой евразийской антивоенной коалиции, которая бы добилась восстановления международного права и прекращения конфликтов в Евразии.
You know, as long as the world is dependent on oil, this is a risk. You know, there's really no way around that. It's a tail risk, we think. You know, a sharp escalation in oil prices is a tail risk. Unfortunately, oil, a lot of it comes out of a region which is subject to potentially some turmoil. I don't know if $200 or $300 a barrel is the right number. I think nobody really knows what the right number would be if there were a conflict in that part of the world. But I think one thing to think about, the way we kind of think about oil and oil prices in the medium term, is that the implication is typically that when oil prices are rising, it's good for producers and bad for consumers, and when oil prices are falling, it's good for consumers and bad for producers. So there's a tendency to look at this as a bit of a zero-sum game. Somebody wins, somebody loses. I think that's true when you move to the extremes. So when oil prices are up at $100 a barrel or potentially higher than that, then it does become a zero-sum game, and I think a lot of oil-producing states recognized that there is a range in which global oil prices are satisfactory from both a producer perspective and a consumer perspective, and it's in the interests of producers and consumers to have oil prices in that range. Maybe we're in that range now, in that $40 to $60 range.
Information and knowledge of specific issues become obsolete very quickly. And therefore, what we need to focus is not giving information, but rather providing the tools to deal with a changing environment. A changing environment, providing the tools to search, to find information, because information should not be taught in class. Mechanisms to discover the information should be the focus. Now, it also requires a cultural change in the sense of promotion of innovation culture. What do I have in mind? An innovation culture is a culture that recognizes that there are failures along the way. There are societies that if you fail once, you are doomed. If you fail once, you are fired. We need to encourage experimentation and also understand that there are setbacks. There are no failures, there are setbacks. Somebody wise once said, if you try, you may fail. If you don't try, you have failed. And I think this is the approach that we should really instill in the cultural issue. Third, for a long time, societies defined their objectives as maximum growth. We have learned that this is not good enough. It needs to be sustainable growth. But then we have also learned that if you have growth which is not shared through the society, you create gaps and social tension. And therefore, I would always say, when we speak about let's promote growth, we should also insist that it is sustainable and inclusive. What does it mean, inclusive? It does not mean a society in which you provide transfers from the rich to the poor and that's it, because this may destroy incentives. You must make sure that the tax system and the incentive system is conducive for investment and self-investment in yourself. Let me say one word about the doomsday scenario. I think that the very fact that we presented and you presented as a terrible outcome is already a contribution to reduce the probability that it may happen. I think it is extremely important to emphasize time and again that in this war there are no winners. When we talk about who won the war in history books, who won the war, it's time to recognize nobody wins the war. Nobody wins a war. Now, if we believe that there is any rationality to mankind, it means that wars, if they happen of this type, then they come from miscalculation, because any calculation will not bring it about. How do we ensure that miscalculation is minimized? I must say, again, transparency, cooperation, communication, and emphasizing the impossibility of the doomsday scenario, which by itself will contribute to reduce that doomsday scenario. And finally, to our friend from Azerbaijan, I'm glad to hear that you came to what you do from the entrepreneurial sector. We have learned And the experiences of centrally planned economy demonstrated it time and again. You cannot have successful economic performance for a long term without a strong entrepreneurial sector, without a strong private sector. And therefore, policies and orientation must be business friendly. There are societies in which business is viewed as the cow that gives milk to the government. This is not sustainable. So the entrepreneurial system is important, and this is the agenda for business schools. I think that that's where it should be. There was final remark about the dollar. I don't know if you want me to spend much time on it. Probably not. Thank you.
We will get back at the last chapter of the session. David.
The single most important score, the English score in college can best predict how much income the person earns. Okay, communication skills, right? In this world, I believe is most important. Okay. Second question about the oil price shooting up to $300 a barrel. Too pessimistic. Even if conflicts happen, I strongly believe that today's world is best ever prepared for energy shortage. Why? Because the source of supply of oil and gas is much more diversified than 30 years ago. Look at this region, Eurasia region. The Eurasia region produces much more proportionally oil than before. Yesterday I met a Chinese businessman working on building pipes from this country to a part of China. 500 million Chinese people are using his natural gas pipe through the natural gas from this region. And also don't forget, all the countries, including China, have been scared by the scenario, as Jacob said. So we have been building up stocks, strategic stocks, higher than before to prepare for the worst scenario. So very much like Jacob says, okay, simply because you said that, $300 a barrel, you scared people. Therefore, people are better prepared than before. Therefore, the scenario may not happen. Actually, final point on monetary policy and monetary structure. I believe it takes another 1 or 2 decades for this world to see 3 competing currencies: US dollar, euro, and RMB. And lots of work are actually will be put in, okay, on the government side and on the forum side, and also involving gentlemen like here, Mark Uzan, okay, rebuilding Bretton Woods, okay, solving problems of RMB, solving problems of euro, making euro and the RMB stronger in its foundation, therefore forming supplements to the US dollar. Thank you.
Yeah, on technology, just one short point on technology and one reflecting on oil price shocks. Technology, obviously the faster development of technologies which we see last years, of course this is a disruption. But from pure economic point of view, if we have gains in productivity, they may be spent somewhere else for creating demand for new jobs. The point is same as with globalization. Was how we may handle this, making this disruption working out smoothly, especially concerning the labor market. Here, I think still most countries are not looking into the face of this problem, and obviously this is an issue which requires much more attention. Though purely economically it shouldn't be a problem. On oil prices, I know Bijan for 25 years, and good thing is that he keeps asking more or less same questions for 25 years, but we didn't have big war, and we didn't have prolonged spikes in oil prices. So I think because, as was mentioned by Professor Lee and Jacob Frank also, because everyone is smart and long preparing for this, knowing this problem. It is not unknown problem, it's known problem. I think for short term, world is relatively well prepared. How to decrease tensions in medium to longer term, of course, requires much more efforts. But I think it's also area, direction where the global leaders are thinking about, and the gatherings which we'll see next month in Germany, they are mostly devoted to these problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, most questions have been dealt with, but there are some sort of tiny marginal leftovers, so I will probably clean the scene and deal with them. One was the issue of volatility of oil prices and its possible negative impact on Europe. Well, number one, we should not be surprised that no matter what happens with oil prices, we are worried. If it goes up, we are worried. If it goes down, we are worried. The optimal thing is stability. Why should we worry? Well, because those countries that are oil and gas producers become destabilized with oil fluctuations. So, what is the consequence for Europe? Well, you know, I come from a country that is quite skeptical about those climate change and energy policies of core Europe. However, we should not underestimate the technological breakthrough and important inroads that, number one, energy savings, number two, renewable energy is making in most advanced European countries. I think the Europeans have one way to deal with oil dependency is to become independent on fossil fuels, and they are pursuing it. It may look improbable, but don't underestimate it in the longer run. Number two, there was a marginal mention of basic income. These are ideas that are tried in some countries in the form of pilot projects. Finland, an ultra-rich country, socially very stable and very balanced, they experiment with basic income. Well, first, we don't really know how will the basic income recipients react. Second, remember that it's a libertarian idea coming from Friedman. But of course, provided that is not on top of the existing social policy, but instead. But of course, we have to get used to a situation in which we will be experimenting with such novel social policy instruments like basic income or earned income subsidization, because social fiber of advanced economies will not tolerate the growing inequalities. And third thing, very short, you know, we all need a multi-currency international monetary system, of course. and the dominance of dollars is sort of practical, but it's also dangerous. Euro, well, as long as Eurozone does not solve its problems, will not create a lasting competition. So yuan, renminbi. Well, as long as China will be concerned about capital flows, both inflows and outflows, it will not be a full-fledged world reserve currency. So it will take time. Thank you.
Thank you, Marek. Well, we are almost done with our panel, but I cannot resist maybe to ask all our panelists a final questions, and I will ask them to be very brief in the answer, because we are to lay out what I have in mind. A month ago, Angela Merkel made an important statement, and I'm going to repeat what she said in front of parliamentarians. The time in which we can fully rely on others are partially coming to an end. I have seen this in the past few days, referring to the G7 summit and the NATO summit in Brussels. So I can only say we Europeans have to take our fate into our own hands. So what I would like to ask here, our speakers, is the concept of a global economy still relevant? And is a global financial architecture that was built after World War II is still relevant? And do we see maybe new alternatives emerging? Sergei mentioned before the Belt and Road Initiative, the BRIC also, Eurasia integration. So I would like to ask maybe very briefly to all of you, is this first statement of Angela Merkel is quite significant, coming from Germany, from a political leader? And two, are we going to move to a new chapter of globalization with institutions underpinning might be very different? Sergei, can I ask you to start?
Трагедия госпожи Меркель заключается в социальных структурных изменений. Стандартные, привычные для нас методы решения экономических проблем не работают. Каждая страна имеет возможность либо совершить экономическое чудо, если правильно эти изменения уловит, ее система регулирования поможет экономике встать на новую волну, длинную волну экономического роста, осваивая перспективные технологии, используя национальные институты регулирования экономики, или рискует провалиться, утратив даже прежнее лидерство в каких-то областях. В этом смысле мир становится намного более разнообразным, и задача каждого государства заключается в том, чтобы выбрать оптимальную модель участия в мировом рынке, опираясь на свои конкурентные преимущества, используя свои институты развития. Но для Меркель проблема в том, что Германия утратила экономический суверенитет, будучи частью Европейского Союза. И у германского правительства сегодня нет инструментов проведения самостоятельной торгово-экономической и валютно-финансовой политики. Европа стала своеобразной бюрократической империей, которая, по сути, подавила национальный суверенитет всех участников. Сможет ли эта бюрократическая империя адаптироваться к происходящим изменениям, покажет будущее. Но я считаю, что нам опыт европейской интеграции в Евразии нужно использовать очень творчески. То есть понимать, что интеграция и унификация – это не одно и то же. Вот мы строим интеграцию в Евразийском экономическом союзе, сопрягаем его с китайской инициативой «Один пояс, один путь» при сохранении разнообразия, при соблюдении суверенитетов и при выстраивании совместных инвестиционных проектов, основанных на сочетании конкурентных преимуществ. Это очень сложная, тонкая творческая работа, которая требует серьезного планирования и управления рыночными механизмами.
Jim?
Yeah, you got two questions. So the first question on trade protectionism, I think Jacob articulated all the reasons why that's a bad idea, which is the protectionism against immigration and closing borders that way. Instead of closing borders to trade, closing borders to people. And this is a highly politicized issue. It was part of the Brexit debate where I live in the UK, and it's clearly an issue in the US and in a number of other countries. every advanced economy either has a demographic challenge today or will have a demographic challenge in the very near future. And the only way that those demographic challenges, including in the US and Canada, will be resolved potentially is through continued immigration. Otherwise, the demographics of virtually every advanced economy begins to look like those of Germany and those of Japan, which we all know are problematic with labor forces in decline. So I add that to the sort of protectionism debate. Your second question on the institutions of globalization, are they changing the infrastructure? It's already happening. And I think we mentioned the AIIB and other institutions, but if you look at the growth of the balance sheets combined of the China Development Bank and China Exim Bank, they grow more quickly than the World Bank. So they're already pushing out more credit out of China into the globalized world. So it's already happening, even without potentially architectural changes, but those changes are happening with the AIIB as well. Jacob?
I would prefer revolutionary. The remarks of Angela Merkel, of course, got a big headlines. And I want to underscore one word. It says, fully rely. Now, it was never the case that one country could or should have fully relied on some umbrella. There is a division of responsibilities. Each one should strengthen his own little home. And then, when it comes to more global matters, if you have a strong home, you will be able to sustain it. It is like many boats in the ocean. The task of each captain is to strengthen his boat. And if the stronger the boat that you have, the stronger you will stand the wind. But still, we are all in the same ocean. And therefore, we must make sure, if there is any way to control the storms in the ocean, which affect all boats, that we should try to do it. But if we don't fully do it, it's not the issue of fully rely or not, but everyone playing his own responsibilities. And the list of activities, how do you strengthen your own boat, that list is very standard, in a way almost boring. Fiscal responsibility, structural reform, monetary targeting, stable inflation, all of these kind of things are still there. Strengthen your boat. However, more recently, the nature of the storms in the ocean have become different than what they used to be. And this is due to the development of financial markets. Financial markets mean that shocks are transmitted very rapidly and occasionally in an amplified way. This is part of the reality. You cannot change the reality by building a wall because your boat is just too little to stop the waves. So therefore we should recognize that the nature of globalization has changed. But globalization is a fact. But what does it mean? There are areas in which international governance are more natural than in some other areas. And I'll give you 2 examples or 3. In principle, there are areas like climate change, like health, like trade, where by its nature, even if you do whatever you can do in your own nation, you do not solve the problems that come from outside that do not recognize political borders. That's where international governance is important to manage the globalization. There are areas like the specifics of fiscal policy, for example, that should be the preview of each and every country that has its own political system and priorities. And this should not be dictated by any governance rules. Governance rules can give you good professional prescription and advice, but the authority to implement and the responsibility is by them. And we have made significant progress. So in the financial area, just a few years ago, there was no FSB, Financial Stability Board, which is exactly designed to deal with these kind of things. And the BIS is, again, important in the financial area. There were issues in the NATO, of course, and the definition of Article 5 or whatever it is, but this I leave to the politicians. Some of them are just not fully aware of what they have signed to. Thank you.
Well, we have to read Angela Merkel's. In effect, she was saying that Europe should be more dependent upon other countries. She was disillusioned by the U.S., right? So that's my reading of her comments. So in this regard, I believe we are already in a new era of globalization. That is, globalization is being pushed by countries or peers, rather than relying on one country, the U.S., right? The emerging markets, including Kazakhstan, China, are working closely with Europe, working on new rules of globalization. And the beauty of this is that things are going rather smoothly, I think, rather smoothly, so that we don't feel it. It's evolution, as Jacob just said, it's rather than revolution. And I think a good example was said by President Xi of China, right, working closely with President Trump. President Xi spent 2 days flying to the US, 2 days, not in the White House, not in New York, not in Trump Tower, rather in a retreat of President Trump in his private house, right? For 2 days, the two gentlemen talk to each other face to face, because we know that President Trump loves meeting people more so than reading things on paper. Right? He's a person based on face-to-face communication. That's good. After that meeting, a lot of misunderstandings between China and the US have been resolved. After that, many things have been pushed ahead, right? Including on Sino-US economic issues. So that is a good example, right? Work together, communicate with each other, meet face-to-face, come to a forum like this, a stand-up forum. Next time, if more US officials or Chinese officials come here, the Astana Forum will achieve even more, right? So that's the hope of new globalization. That's the new reality. Let's embrace it rather than complain about it. Thank you.
We more or less deciphered what Angela Merkel had said. So just on generally on globalization. One thing not to be overlooked, in my view, is the issue of the question of development. Because, I mean, we are not talking about globalization in the world where all countries are already developed. Countries are, big chunks of the world population are actually in very different kinds of development. And even, say, Kazakhstan and even Russia, beyond, say, nuclear and general military power and engineering, are developing countries, and the big part of the world is even less developed. So we should think to what extent globalization really helps, and what kind of globalization dissected, as Jacob Frankel rightly said, into very different actually areas of globalization. How it really is conducive to faster economic growth in less developed part of the world. Thank you.
Between Donald Trump and Angela Merkel, the issue of costs of defense of NATO. There was a big, let's say, exchange between the Americans and the rest, and this is a big part of this Merkel's statement. Other thing, which is probably less visible but more important, more fundamental, is that she thinks that there is a gap between Trump and her, let's put it this way, as far as values are concerned. And I leave it here.
Global recovery underway. Let me just to make sure also that you can pick up a copy of the publication where you can find the papers of the authors. It's outside. And please extend with me a warm applause to all our panelists. We will have a coffee break and extend to next session. Thank you.